It's Dew Time with Pastor Steph.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Rise and shine. You're on with this Dew Time with Pastor Steph. How are you this morning? That's what I like to hear. That's what I like to hear. For this is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. So, where were you last week? Oh, we started off shaking the Monday morning blues with the Dew Time crew, and we talked about some popular expressions that the gaslighters like to use. And how about, I'm sorry you think that I hurt you. You know, gaslighters always try to make you think something is wrong with you. And that is one of the common phrases that they use. They turn it around and, you know, they really didn't hurt you, but it's what you think, it's what you feel happened. No, they really hurt you and they know that they did. What about, you're crazy and other people think so too. Sounds like Martin, right? Yes. Well, that's the way gaslighters treat you. They try to bring on all your people to make you think that something is wrong with you. Yes. One more phrase. You're too sensitive. Very common phrase that gaslighters use to make you think that something is wrong with you. And, you know, you need to understand that either you are a gaslighter or when you're being gaslit. And it's a discernment that only God will give you. So stick close to God and don't let the gaslighters anywhere near you. Well, we got our switch tip last week. Stop setting yourself back. Well, that's one of the easiest ways to set yourself back. Don't choose God. Yeah, don't choose God and give the gaslighters an opportunity to mess with your mind. The things that you do, if you're not advancing, more than likely, you're setting yourself back. Very little do we take the time to do things that will make us stand still. But most times, it will make us go backwards. And that's one of the things that we talked about another part of the week as well. You know, when you don't take good advice, you definitely set yourself back. When you war against God, you set yourself backwards. So listen, go back and listen to a very practical switch tip. Everybody can identify with setting yourself back. So don't do it to yourself, okay? Don't do it to yourself. Well, we talked about mega churches last week and some of the things that people have said that have stopped them from attending the mega churches. Well, greed was one of them. When you have your many offering lines, when you're constantly asking people for money, when you are asking people to fund your jet plane fund, yeah, people, they're going to eventually stop going. Yeah, it's only a matter of time. Trust me when I tell you, when the politicians are marching up in the church, people don't want to see that. Nope, they don't want to see that. They are really not feeling these people coming up in the church house. Well, what about the power-hungry people? Yes, they will definitely set people back and turn them off from attending church. So The truth of the matter is these things can happen in a big church or a little church. So please do not set yourself up. If you go into a church and these people are not giving you food from the word of God, then be up out of there. Don't set yourself back. Excuse me. Well, we got our girl Vivian nice and early on a Wow Wednesday morning, and we talked about Eric Adams possibly being sued because they're planning to put ICE agents on Rikers Island. Yeah, we didn't think that was going to be a very good idea. Yeah, and that's not something that we think is going to work. No, they need to definitely rethink their strategy. Oh, Trump says he wants to help people by giving them a stipend if they self-deport. Sounds like you falling for the okie doke. Don't set yourself back. Make sure you don't fall for that, because with all the deportation that he's been doing, he has not started that with people being paid. No, there's something up his sleeve. So make sure you don't fall for the okie doke. All right. We also talked about things that you should never tolerate if you respect yourself. And definitely no form of disrespect is something that you need to deal with. No. What else? Being taken for granted. Being taken for granted comes quite often when people don't respect you. So if you respect you, don't take it. Don't take it. What about toxic friendships? You don't need a friend that bad. There's not a friend like the lowly Jesus. No, not one. Unnecessary drama. Who is running from that? Everybody should be running from unnecessary drama. So go back and get the list of things that you should not be accepting if you respect yourself. Well, we finished off the week with our gentlemen. And we talked about the things that some of the life decisions that they made. And when they got to be 50 years old, they ended up realizing that I didn't do very well there. Well, what about letting their health take a back seat? Most men at this age, once they cross over 50, or once they reach the age of 50, they're not taking care of their health too well. Yes, I've known of many men to ignore their health. And the man said, they could have done better. Allowing friendships to fade away. Well, our man said that was not a huge mistake that they made. Very nice. Never learning how to talk about their feelings. Well, that was kind of balanced on the scale. We had someone who said, I could have done better. And then we got those that I ain't never had problems talking about my feelings. So go back to Friends episode and listen to some of the things that they said that as they got older, they either had realized they had done well, or they had not done very well at all. It was a really insightful conversation, and I really think that, especially if you're a male, you'll learn something from it. But you know what? If you're a female, you'll learn something too, especially if you haven't turned 50, because now you'll be paying attention to some of your own stuff. Okay. Well, that's how we spent our week last week. So we hope that you were blessed, and I definitely encourage you to go back and listen. Okay? All right. Well. Today we are shaking the Monday morning blues all over again. We are on the second side of April. Yes, already we're on the second side of April. And we're almost out of this month. Time is flying by. And I hope you have your life in order because time is waiting for no one. Okay, so we getting ready to get this party started. So go ahead and get that healthy breakfast. Go ahead and tell somebody that it's due time with Pastor Steph is on. And whatever you do, don't go anywhere because we will be right back.
The story of Lita D. Newman, known as the hairbrush hero, is truly fascinating. Born in a small town in Ohio on 1865, Lita noticed the need for better hair care tools and set out to make a difference. Back in 1898, while styling hair in New York City, Newman patented a groundbreaking hairbrush that changed everything. This wasn't just any brush. It had synthetic bristles that were tougher, lasted longer, and didn't break easily, making it highly durable. Plus, she added a compartment for easy cleaning, a feature that was ahead of its time. Her innovative designs cater to different hair types, making hair care easier and more effective. This invention didn't just make hairbrushing simpler, it revolutionized the whole hairdressing industry, setting new standards. Lita's story is one of perseverance and ingenuity, inspiring many to follow their dreams and make a difference in their fields. So next time you fix your hair, remember Lita D. Newman, the trailblazer behind your morning routine. Her legacy lives on in every stroke.
Good morning, and good morning again. Welcome back to It's Due Time with Pastor Steph. And we are shaking the Monday morning blues. If you're in the room, you're going to have to check in because I don't know you're out there. And I would love to be able to say to you, good morning. We got the first check-in from our boy Terrence. Hey, Terrence, good morning. How are you? Thank you so much for joining us. Happy Monday. Kelly, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Happy Monday to you. And our girl Tamika will be chatting with you in a couple of minutes, maybe even Brother Al if school is closed. And good morning to you. We got a good morning from our boy Serge. Hey, Serge. How are you? Thank you so much for joining us. And definitely, we want to wish you a happy Monday. Well, you know how we always start off our Monday mornings. And we start off with our health tip of the morning. The week, actually. Well, this morning, we're talking about cabbage. Oh, I love these health tips. Now, thank God for our loyal viewers, as Vivian calls them. And, I get a lot of our health tips from the outside. Yeah, I don't have to do a lot of research for our health tips because now that I do the health tips on a regular basis, I get them sent to me. So if you've got a good health tip, if you come across a good health tip, make sure you share it with me, okay? I would love to review it. And most times, all I got to do is look at the topic and we just dive right in because I don't know a lot about cabbage, especially 8 things about cabbage. But let's learn this morning. If you've overcooked cabbage, you're not alone. Between the mild flavor and the smell sometimes. Not a whole lot of people like cabbage, and they're gonna give us some nutritious information about cabbage. Well, the first thing they say, it pumps the brakes on oxidative stress. Now they say oxidative stress is caused by high levels of free radicals, which damage cells and alter DNA. Wow. That's where cabbage comes in. This vegetable is teeming with antioxidants. It's the first time I've heard that about cabbage, which work to neutralize free radicals, ultimately defending the body against oxidative stress. Now, I'm just going to do a little thing right here. Well, let's see what oxidative stress is. They say oxidative stress reflects an imbalance between the systemic manifestation of reactive oxygen species and a biological system's ability to readily detoxify the reactive intermediates or to repair the resulting damage. Boy, that sure did not put anything for Pastor Steph. Maybe it did for you, but I'm going to look up oxidative stress and we're going to do a little study on that, okay? It reduces inflammation. We're talking about the 8 wonderful benefits of cabbage. And the second thing is it reduces inflammation. They say as the antioxidants in cabbage fight oxidative stress, they also quell inflammation. Wow. Well, there's a component in cabbage that reduces inflammation by acting on pro-inflammatory pathways in the body. Research has also shown that this component may regulate anti-inflammatory genes and lower pre-inflammatory proteins. Wow, I never heard this before. No, not about cabbage. You always hear about the dark leafy greens, but you don't hear much about cabbage. I wonder if this is the same for Brussels sprouts. We're going to do that. We're going to look that up. Okay. Well, they say cabbage contains immune boosting nutrients. Wow. They say for a natural way to support your immunity, add more cabbage to your plate. It's packed with vitamin C, an essential nutrient that supports the body's defense mechanisms by boosting the production of white blood cells, which are crucial for fighting off infections. It also acts as an antioxidant, fighting off free radicals that can weaken the immune system. Wow, nice. It keeps your eyes healthy. Okay, I need tons and tons and tons of cabbage. If you wear glasses, definitely you want to keep them eyes healthy. They say that some components that's found in cabbage are antioxidants that protect the eyes from ultraviolet light. That's UV light. You've heard of that before. This is key because UV light can cause oxidative stress. We're going to find out what this oxidative stress means in the retina, increasing the risk of age-related macular degeneration and vision issues. Wow. Number 5, a healthy benefit about cabbage. It contains fiber for a healthy gut. Wow. Okay. Cabbage is a stellar source of both soluble and insoluble fiber, which are both needed for optimal gut health. They say soluble fiber, which dissolves in water, acts as a prebiotic, meaning it feeds good bacteria in the gut. Meanwhile, insoluble fiber, which doesn't dissolve in water, adds bulk to stool, helping promote regular bowel movements and reducing constipation. Boy, we've been missing out on the benefits of cabbage. Wow. All right. What else are they telling us about cabbage? Oh, it's good for the heart. I know that's the one they snuck in on us this morning. The soluble fiber we just mentioned also helps reduce the absorption of cholesterol in the blood, potentially preventing high blood cholesterol, a major risk factor for heart disease. Cabbage and also contains potassium. Where has this information been? An essential mineral that regulates blood pressure. And we know cabbage helps fight inflammation. Ah, okay. And that can fuel the development of heart disease. All right. So we got to make sure we get this cabbage in our system. It strengthens our bones. Wow. Another cabbage health benefit. Definitely. It provides vitamin K, a nutrient that helps to both absorb calcium and helps to build strong bones. And it also helps to form bone proteins, which keep bones strong and reduce the risk of fractures. Wow, you better give this cabbage to your kids. It has a key nutrient for pregnant people. Wow. Why don't they just say pregnant women? I don't know, y'all. I don't like that. Thanks to its high content of folate, vitamin B9, cabbage can support healthy pregnancies. That's because the nutrient is needed to make red and white blood cells, as well as DNA. It also aids the development of the central nervous system in a growing fetus, which can prevent neutral tube defects. In other words, serious blood defects that affect the brain, spine, or spinal cord in the fetus. Wow. Well, definitely, we don't want to overcook our cabbage. Yeah. Don't kill the cabbage. Steam it, eat it crunchy so you can get all these health benefits. Let's just grab these again. They say it pumps the brakes on oxidative stress. Cabbage reduces inflammation. Cabbage contains immune boosting nutrients. Cabbage keeps your eyes healthy. Cabbage contains fiber for a healthy gut. Cabbage is good for the heart. Cabbage strengthens the bones. And cabbage has key nutrients for pregnant women. Wow. Man, talk about learning something new every day. Big time. Big time and big time. Well, I do have to go back and I have to apologize to two key people. And we got to say good morning to the ladies that help us hold it down each and every day. They keep our lives going. Let's say good morning to our girl Shantice. Hey, Shantice. And we want to say good morning to our girl Anika. Good morning, Anika. All right. Well, Anika says that oxidative stress means too much radicals in the body, can cause lasting damage to cells. Thank you. That makes it a little better. And Terrence said he just said the same thing. Where has this information been? Oh, my goodness gracious. And we're going to say good morning to Miss Charlene. Miss Charlene, did you hear what's going on with the cabbage? Man, if not, you're going to have to go back and listen. Don't take, Terrence's word for it. Go hear it for yourself. Okay. All right. Listen. A nigga says, indeed, good info on cabbage. Whoa. I mean, come on. Like I said, we've been doing health tips for the past, 5 years, and we have not come across information on cabbage. As a matter of fact, we've gotten a lot of lists of good foods and things like that, and cabbage hasn't been on that list at all. No. So to hear that cabbage, it has so many wonderful components, I'm gonna have to start cutting up some cabbage a little bit more. All righty. Well, let's see what we got going on in the news today. Now, I had to slow down on some of the news because they were talking about a whole bunch of killing and murders, and ain't that the same thing? But you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, that was like hot in the news last night. I was like, well, is there anything else? I was like, I don't think they want to hear about, just some killing. But it was interesting. I got to tell you, it was interesting. I had to hold some of that stuff back for tomorrow, for Let's Talk About It Tuesday. Yeah, it was good. It was good information. But I was like, for Monday morning, we're trying to shake the Monday morning blues. We don't want to be talking about a whole bunch of killing, right? No. Well, let's start off with the 911 operator who didn't want to hear about much killing either. Yo, somebody help me with this. I couldn't wait to talk to y'all about this stuff this morning. So we got this 911 operator. Shartiston gave it up. I didn't even have to tell you her name was Crashonda Williams. We ain't had to show no picture for that. Crashonda Williams. I wonder if she was born in Crenshaw, because that's her name, Crashonda Williams. Okay, we're going to go over one day what components we use to help us select the job that we take. Because homegirl decided that she would take the 911 operator job, but then hang up on people because she didn't want to listen to the bad news. She didn't want to listen to all the stuff that the people were calling about. Now, why would you choose to be a 911 operator and hang up on people? Oh my goodness. All right. So, an unconscious woman, that didn't make any sense. So I was like, what are we talking about here? Well, there was a robbery in progress, and there were some cars racing on the interstate, and some people called to tell her or anybody who was on the opposite end of the 911 call that all of this stuff was going on. And come to find out that she hung up on thousands of calls. Now I'm trying to figure out where was Big Brother, as they call him. Why would it take you, or how long did it take you to find out that she was hanging up on thousands of calls? She was recorded saying, ain't nobody got time for this, for real. After ending a call in which a security guard had tried to report two cars driving at high speeds on Interstate 45, and when he called her, she hung up. Yeah. Now, another time, she hung up and somebody said, all they heard was, "This is 911, can I help you?" And the person said, "I was trying to finish my sentence and got disconnected. Wow. Well, they said that somebody called back and got a different operator. And he said by the time the police arrived, however, the store manager had been shot and killed. So what happened was the person was calling because they had heard gunfire. And they called to report the gunfire. And they said that she disconnected the call the first time. And the next time, by the time the police arrived, the store manager had been shot and killed from that same incident. So, I don't know. They say that she only got, now it was a very short time. I want to make sure I give this to y'all correctly. She only got 10 months in jail. 10 months in jail for hanging up on people. Yep. 10 months. Now, do you think? No. 10 days. 10 days in jail for her irresponsible actions. Man, 10 measly days. Well, what happened to the people who ended up being shot? She hung up the phone. Well, I was reading some comments, and there's some back and forth chatter, and they were saying, well, listen, when the guy called, they were already hearing the gunshot, so it wasn't like she could have saved somebody. But how do you know that? How do you know that? How do you know that somebody's life couldn't have been saved had the EMS gotten there a little earlier? We don't know that. But not only that, what are you doing? What are you doing? What happened to all the other calls that came in? I'm sure something had to be some life and death. Yo, I'm telling you. Well, Ketty says, how do I call 911 and you hang up because you didn't want to talk to the people? Yes, that's what she said. She said that she didn't want to hear all of that. She didn't want to talk to anybody. Wow. Tara said she had to have so many complaints. No way they let her still work. I blame the whole company for letting this go on, and I know people lost their life because of her. Absolutely. This is so sad because you're not gonna ever convince me that somebody did not lose their life either. Yo, 10 days, they planned this. She was only getting calls from black areas. The system has to do something about this. Yeah, that's not gonna work. That's not gonna work. Ain't nowhere in the world she should only get 10 days. Oh my goodness gracious. What else are we talking about? Oh, well, we know this person ain't gonna get 10 days. So you got this man who gets a blow of information and threatens to blow her brains out. So there's a Michigan man who shot his girlfriend during an argument about a paternity issue. And he was sentenced. So you got Vaughn Smith, who was 35 at the time, who shot his girlfriend. And he had to stand before the judge as he pled guilty to assault with intent to commit murder and 2 firearms charges, and asking for leniency. And he asked for leniency. He said on the night of May 23rd, 2024, he shot his girlfriend twice, once in the head and once in the leg, and was tackled by her 16-year-old son, who then stabbed him while defending his mother. So supposedly what happened was she just told him that the daughter that she had was not his, and he said he was going to blow her brains out. Well, he attempted to do so. Well, clearly he didn't get a good shot because that didn't happen, thank God. And here's the kicker. The girlfriend, she she pled with the judge. Please show him some mercy because he's a man who is trying to be a better person, a father, and a businessman. Now, you just tried to shoot me in the head because I told you that the daughter that I clearly told you was yours is not yours. You shoot me in the head, you shoot me in the leg, trying to kill me, threatening to blow my brains out, and I'm going to plead that you are trying to become a better person. Boy, talk about gaslighting. Yo, are you serious? Well, you know what? Maybe she blamed herself. Maybe she figured, had she not lied, she wouldn't have been shot at. Oh my goodness. We got Mr. J. James 25. Good morning. Thank you for joining us. She'll have a very hard time getting work now with a misdemeanor. And she'll have a hard time getting another job with that name. Okay? Absolutely. If it ever got back that she lost her job because she was a 911 operator that was hanging up on people, I wouldn't let her sweep in the school building. She couldn't get no job for me. Absolutely not. Miss Charlene says, you can tell that she was very slow by her name. She should have been fired and put in jail for 5 years. Absolutely. 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 I definitely believe she should have gotten more time. Right? Read the reflection of duty. All the calls are recorded. Absolutely. Terrence says, what's going on with the black people now? Yes. So last homegirl pled for her boyfriend who tried to shoot her in the head, that the judge would be lenient. I'm sorry. If I had to go to the hospital because I had a gunshot in my head, listen, if I had a gunshot on my finger, you going to jail. I'm sorry. Okay. What constitutes a good person? How good could you be if you held a gun and tried to shoot me in the head and the leg? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Even if I thought I made you that mad, nah. I'm passing, y'all. What else we talking about this morning? Terrence, ask your question again. What's wrong with us this morning? So, you got the stepdad, 42 years old, from Florida, who was in the house with his 10-year-old stepdaughter and her brother, and the mother was at work. Why are always the women at work and the men at home babysitting? Somebody help me with that one. Okay, but I'm just asking. Well, he's been arrested because the 10-year-old stepdaughter, pushed her little brother. The stepdad got so mad that he dragged the little girl to the stove, put her hand on the hot stove, and it was so hot it left the impression of the burner coil on her skin. Now here's the kicker. Now talk about names. Let's see. He's George Almoney, and 36-year-old Malene was also arrested. Why? Because when her hand was burned on the stove, she grabbed the cell phone, called the mother at work. The mother did nothing. Came home and acted like nothing had happened. They said the girl's hand was burned so bad, skin was peeling off. They took her to the emergency room. Yeah. Oh my goodness gracious. So she's charged with 1 count of child neglect causing great bodily harm, as well as an additional count of aggravated battery on a law enforcement officer for allegedly pushing and punching police when they tried to place her under arrest. You fighting off the cops, but you wouldn't fight the man. I'm done, y'all. I'm done. I just realized this thing here. So you could fight the police, but you could fight the punk who just burned your daughter on a stove? Yo, we have lost our minds. If I wasn't woke, I'm woke now. I read this last night, and I'm like, yo, she going to jail because she trying to fight the police. It wasn't until just now that I remembered that I just said to y'all that that's why she was arrested in the first place, because she didn't do anything. She didn't say anything. She acted like nothing happened. And they were like, well, what's going on here? What's happening? Well, man. So she was released after posting bond of $1,500. He was released after posting bond of $7,500. Child, as Mariah would say, I just need her here to give me the child. If this ain't a child moment, we ain't got no child moment. Oh my goodness. Oh, well, Terrence says this is the new Black Monday. Put him under the jail. Let Big Bubba and his cousin get him. I know he beat the mother as well. Absolutely. Absolutely. Good morning, Vivian. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Man, we got one more story. And then we go into our due time crew. Oh my goodness. Well, supposedly, they say when they took a poll of the voters from last year's election, they said 98% of the poll read that people would vote the same way they voted. They asked, would you have, knowing now what you know, would you have voted for Trump back then? They said yes. Yeah, they would have voted for Trump. They say, would you have voted for Kamala? And they said, yes. They said 98% of people voted the same, would say they would have voted the same way. Even though, all the deportations, all of the stuff that has gone on, they said they wouldn't change a thing. Well, here's the thing. They said that Trump promised he would do what he would do, and he did it. So how you gonna get mad? Yeah, that was the mentality. Child, I tell you, I'm really gonna lock in that child. As a matter of fact, I'm just gonna record her and press the child button. Yes. And with all the craziness, they said that it would be the same. I just had to throw that in. After those 3 stories, I had to throw it in. Where is my due time crew? Where's Tamika at? Let me say good morning to Tamika. Good morning.
Monday morning. How are you this morning?
Child, that's how I'm doing this morning. Girl, talk about some craziness. How are you?
I am feeling better. I went out of town and came back and got some kind of bug, and it took me down Friday, Saturday,
Wow.
Sunday. I'm still on the mend, but feeling much better than I was.
All right. Well, you do sound congested. Well, we hope you feel better and thank you for joining us despite how you're feeling. What is going on? We got a 911 operator, Crenshonda Williams, who decided she wanted to talk to people and she didn't want to hear no more complaints. So when the people started calling in, she started hanging up. She even was recorded saying, I ain't got no time for this, for real. Hung up the phone and she got 10 days jail. Is that enough?
I'm trying to figure out who she knew that only allowed her to have 10 days. You got to know somebody, and with a name like Crenshaw, I can't even say it. Her name is like
Crenshaw, girl.
Like Worcestershire sauce. Like I can't Worcestershire. That kind of name. Like, who is it that you know? Who is it that you paying? You have to know somebody for 10 days. It reminds me of one of those episodes of Medea when she got a job and she was answering the phone and she was, doing all kinds of stuff. Like what type of job? I work for a job that has it's a call center, and they record your calls. The very first year that you are lined up, they listen to your calls. They want to see how you react with people, how you engage in conversation, and so my thing is the fact that they didn't catch her then, they let her go that long is amazing, because within the first year, every phone call is recorded. So how is it that you got that far? And then the ideal that you would say, oh, I'm not going to take this call and hang up. They can tell when you're hanging up and when a call disconnects, as well as when you're hanging up. So I'm still kind of perplexed on how you got far that long without, somebody, somebody.
Man, just at the fact that you said this was thousands of calls. You already know somebody. Come on. Thousands of calls. Yeah. My goodness gracious. Well, you got the next individual where she tells him that the daughter that he thinks is his is not his. He threatens to blow her brains out. He actually attempts as he shoots her in the head, shoots her in the leg, and she's in court petitioning for him, saying that he's really trying to be a good person, father, and a businessman. Who done lost their mind?
Well, when I look at stuff like that, there's two sides to every story. And, we women, we've talked about it in the past. We women can take a man there. All this time he's believed that this child is his and, he probably went above and beyond to do whatever, and then at this point you tell him, well, probably out of anger, this child ain't yours, whether it is or not, whether this child was yours or not, there's a way to do stuff, and you can take a person to the limit, and so most likely the way that I feel that what happened was she took him to the limit and then she realized, oh, he is a good man. It's just me. I took him to this degree. And now this is what, these are the repercussions of my actions. Everybody does stuff and then they only think about their part. The fact that she actually verbalized and says, well, he's trying to be a good man and I took him there, is amazing. Because most of the time, when you feel like you're being shot at after the action that you created, you don't think of it that way. You only think about the fact that I'm being shot. So I'm looking at it from that perspective.
Tamika, I'm sorry. I clearly get what you're saying. But you tried to shoot me in the head. Don't care what you talking about. You tried to shoot me in the head. Now, I may have taken you there, but I ain't ever going to take you there, and then I'm a petition for you. Nah, I agree. I agree. People, you can admit, you know what, I went a little too far. I get you. I'm sorry. But when you try to shoot me in the head, nah, I ain't never gonna take you there. I don't care what
that
I
could have
did.
been a blackout moment, and the only thing he thought, if I could just, get rid of you.
Okay. All right. I'm sure that's what he was thinking. I ain't questioning what he was thinking. I'm questioning what she was thinking when she said, please, Your Honor, he's trying to be a good man, father. No, be a better person, a father and businessman. I pass. I'm sorry. All right. We're talking about this last story where he took his stepdaughter to the stove, put her hand on the hot coils, left the coil impression on her hand, and skin peeling. She called mom. Mom did nothing. Police tried to arrest her for not doing anything, and she fought the police. So she got arrested for for fighting off the police, but she never tried to fight the man. Okay, what you say about that one? Who blacked out on this time?
Because that's my pudding. And regardless of what he does to my child, this is what I find sacred. And it's so extremely sad that you want a man that much.
Oh, excuse me.
Regardless of what he does to your child, and this type of damage physically as well as emotionally. I don't trust you as a child at this point, because you hurt me. You're not even thinking about the repercussions of what that causes for this child for the future. And you get at the cops that are trying to arrest you for doing absolutely nothing. Her savior is in this man, not in the God that we should serve.
Wow. And she pushed the brother. Now, last week we talked about, or the week before last, we talked about young Carmelo Anthony who stabbed somebody who pushed him. And this week, the 10-year-old pushes her brother and she gets her hand put on a hot stove. I don't know, girl. This pushing thing is leading to a whole lot of repercussions that we didn't know about when we were growing up. Woo! Thank you for joining us. We got Terrence. Okay, wait. We'll come back to that one. What about Trump? The pollers who say if they had to do it all over again, they'd vote the same exact way, even with Trump doing all of this crazy stuff.
That one surprised me because, I've seen so many advertisements, things on social media where people say they voted, for Trump and they're like, oh, if I had to do it all, I've been seeing it like plagued all over, social media that they said that if they had to do it again, they wouldn't have done it. If they could take their vote back, they would have. Damage is done now. I'm actually surprised that, with all the foolishness that we see and we keep seeing, sometimes I wake up in the morning, I thank God for prayer and I thank God for God, but I wake up in the morning, I'm like, oh, I don't even want to watch the news. Because what is it that I'm going to hear? What is it that they're going to say? And the fact that you would still stand on your ground, especially on that side, really surprises me.
Yeah. And they say that one of the reasons is because, listen, he said he was going to do all of these things. He warned you and he kept his word. So people are holding on to that. As crazy as that is, Tamika, they are holding on to that. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Let's talk to Pastor KL and see what he's got to say. Good morning, Pastor KL.
Good morning, ladies. How are you ladies doing?
Okay, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Good. All right. We talking about, they're going crazy this morning. 911 operator. She says, I ain't trying to hear nothing. Ain't nobody got no time for this for real. And hung up the phone on what they say was thousands of people. And she only got 10 days in jail. Is that long enough?
I think she should have got at least a year, at least. At least a year. At least a year. She dropped the
Mm,
ball.
big time. Thousands of times they claim, Pastor KL, thousands of times. Oh, paternity issues. So we didn't have to go to paternity court. Somehow or another, she ended up spilling the beans that this was not the father, and he threatens to blow her brains out, and he needed to do so. Shot at her, shot her in the head, shot her in the leg. And when he went to court, he was begging the judge to be sympathetic because this was a blow for him. It was a blow for him. Although he said he was going to blow her brains out, this was a blow for him to hear that after all this time, this was not his daughter. And the mother of the child said, please, Your Honor, be lenient, as he has been trying to be a good person and a good father and businessman. What say you? Who done lost their mind?
No greater love than a man who tried to lay down your life. How about that? How about that?
Yeah, man.
That's some kind of love right there. I just don't understand. We take back all type of stuff. And to Tamika's point, I understand. I mean, they're doing a whole lot of stuff on Facebook and on TikTok now where the man is going out and he's getting DNAs and finding out that the child is not theirs. Women play games. You know what I mean? But the problem is that they let the game go a little too far, and they can't win that. There's certain games we can't win. You know what I mean? No matter how well you play it, at the end you will lose the game. So yeah, she played too much, and now she realized I'm in agreement with Tamika because she realized she went a little too far. And if you put this man in jail, somebody else gonna kill me. That's the other look at it. You know what I mean? He might have missed, but somebody else is coming to get me, whether it's mama, whether it's his sister. So if I just say, Judge, have lenient on him, maybe I can live. I'm already shot and busted in the head.
Wow. What a way to look at that. Oh my goodness. All righty. And we've got the stepdad who burns the 10-year-old stepdaughter's hands on the hot stove for pushing her brother. And she calls mom, and mom does nothing. They both end up getting arrested. He got arrested for what he did to the 10-year-old stepdaughter, and she got arrested for doing nothing. And she fights off the cops. So they get a charge on her for that. Now, is this sick or what?
Again, more love. First of all, I'm not sure where you find these men, and why you leave these men at the house that you don't know with your children. Tamika always talking about the representative. Yeah, when we go out to dinner, we look good. But now I'm gonna leave them with my children because you knew how to eat with a knife and a fork. No, I'm sorry. We're not doing that. And then me as the child, I'm calling you saying, "Mommy, this Negro over here just did this, and you do nothing for my safety." No, you need to have a few seats.
Well, she will. Well, she may end up going to jail. Well, she's out on $1,500 bond. He's out on $7,500 bond. And we'll see. I'm following this story. Definitely following this story.
He should have a child abuse. She should have a child abuse. He should have manslaughter. I mean, there should be so much stuff that's linked to both of them. You know what I mean? They should be in jail for a long time. She won't be burned no more. She'll be with somebody else.
We'll find out. We'll definitely find out because I'm definitely keeping up with this story. Well, you got the polls that say 98% of the voters say that they would vote the same way. They voted for Trump back in 24. They would still vote for Trump despite all that has gone on. You've got the ones who say they voted for Kamala, 98%. said the same thing. They vote the same way. Tamika says she's heard all of these. Boy, I should have thought I thought a little harder before I pressed that button. And now they're saying that, hey, you know what? So be it. He said he was going to do it. He kept his promise. Do you believe this poll?
Yes, though he slay me, yet will I trust him. Though he tried to put me back to my country, yet I'm going to trust him. Because he might turn around. You know, I definitely, listen, I keep telling you, I'm in Alabama. I'm in the Trump state. They if they can get 2 votes a person, they're going to do it.
Wow. Okay. Well, Anika says we calling this Crazy Blacks Monday. I don't believe that poll. Depends on who they asked. Sounds like a MAGA poll. Okay, might be. Serge says, my thought on the 911 dispatcher. She should have gotten 24 years, and now you want to give her time in jail. I say leave it now. She'll do it again. Fire her. Or send her to jail for 5 years. Wow. Okay. I say she should have gotten a whole lot of time. Well, thank you for indulging me on our what do you call this? Our news. So, they took another poll with successful marriages. And they said that if you do these things after a fight with your partner, that it should last. Your marriage should have a long lifespan. One of the things they say, you should take responsibility instead of assigning blame. Tamika, how true is that?
Oh man, that's so important. You know, just fess up. You know, I did it. You know, think about how that feels. You know, the blaming, the pointing finger. You know, that doesn't help or heal the situation. Just fess up. Listen, you know, I did such and such. You know, and it allows things to go so much easier when that happens, because now I can relate to you as a person. You know, as opposed to you always sticking your finger in my face talking about I did such and such and such. Then at this point, I'm not open to hearing you. It opens up the line of communication.
Okay. Pastor KL, they say your marriage will last longer if after a fight you take responsibility instead of assigning blame.
Yeah, definitely. Listen, your marriage will last longer. Even if you're wrong, even if you're right, say you're wrong. You know, it's just easier that way. You know, it lasts too long, you know, and it takes too much energy out, you know, and then it lingers for too long. So when you see that your point is not getting across and you're not winning, just concede to it. Okay, you're right. We'll do better.
Okay. Tamika, do you think that if you're wrong, you know, say, even if you're right, say you're wrong, you know, just concede because you're not winning. Does that at the end of the day really help? Or will you end up coming back to some things because it wasn't really resolved? What's your thought?
I don't agree with that, because then it's kind of almost the same thing as saying, whatever, you know, we'll just do it your way, you know. And I find that in marriages, there is a lot of that, you know, we'll just do it your way, you know, and as opposed to it smoothing things over, it opens up another can of worms. And unfortunately, it doesn't fix things.
Okay. Pastor KL, with that thought, with that concept that it doesn't fix things, are you agreeing that it doesn't fix things or just patching it up? What's your second thought on this?
While it may not fix things, you know, 2 things can happen. it'll fix things for the moment, or the other person will be so satisfied that you agreed with her or him that it'll never come back.
Okay. Okay. We gotta okay. All right. Let me go back a little bit. But say that one more time.
Who's that? Me?
You, yes.
Okay. It's two things. It'll either patch it up for the moment, or the other person is so satisfied with your answer that it'll never come back up again.
Okay. That's interesting. Never thought about it that way. All righty. Let's see what else they say. You don't require agreement. Interesting thought. Tamika, you don't require agreement. Your relationship will last a little longer.
That's a good thing. We're not Siamese, meaning that we have to agree on everything, and everything I like, you like. It's not one of those coming to America. What kind of cereal you like? Whatever kind of cereal you like. Where we going? Wherever you want to go. Sometimes you might want to do something, and sometimes I don't want to do that, and that's okay. I don't have to be in agreement with everything that you think of, that you like, that you do, that you find appealing, and you don't have to like everything that I do. That makes us individuals, and it's okay for us to be different. Maybe I like to read and you like to watch TV. We can do that in the same room, and it's okay. Sometimes I might just want to go in another room just because. Doesn't mean that I hate you. Doesn't mean that I'm angry with you. It's just that I'm different at this time. I don't want to watch TV. I want to do something different. And nothing's wrong with that. That's what makes us individuals.
Okay. They say if you don't require agreement, your relationship will last longer. What do you say, Pastor KL?
I'm in agreement. Listen, like Tamika said, in my marriage, my wife ate pork chops. I don't eat pork. I'm not bad that you eat pork chops. That's what you want to eat. Fine. I'm still gonna have to cook the pork chops because you can't cook. We in agreement that you can't cook. So I'm gonna have to cook it. But I mean, you can have what you want, I can have what I want, and we can have a satisfying relationship. The problem is that why don't you try it? You might like it. Hey, just take one bite from me. No, I'm not dying for you. I'm not doing that. You know what I'm saying? So you have to agree to disagree.
Okay. Well, another thing that they say you do if you want to have a long marriage, you fight for the relationship, not against one another. I like that one, Tamika.
Yeah, definitely. We are a team, and so anything that comes against us is a problem. I'm not going to fight by myself. We've seen many of shows or things or topics that come up where she's fighting or he's fighting, and they're fighting alone. You going through all this stuff, and then the relationship ends because the other person who's not fighting could care less. We just talked about it last week where, I'm doing all this work. I'm putting all this energy. I'm putting all this drive. Sometimes I'm not even sleeping because I'm trying to make sure that we're functioning well, but I'm the only one doing it. I'm sweating and doing all this work, and you could care less. I don't mind fighting if we are fighting, but I'll be doggone if I'm going to do it by myself.
Okay. Pastor KL, you fight for the relationship, not against one another.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. But the fight has to be towards the beginning. A lot of times we end up fighting when the other person's already checked out. A lot of times the person that is expressing to you what they need in this relationship and what they're not getting, and you keep on ignoring it. But then as they pack their bags, now you want to fight. The fight is over. He or she has already checked out of this thing. Now you want, oh, come on, let's go to counseling. Oh, come on, let's see the pastor. You ain't been in church since 3 Easters ago. Now you want to go to see the pastor. So they've already checked out. So the fight has to be from the time you say I do to death do you part.
Okay. All right. Tamika, you don't pretend to accept apologies if you're not ready. Ooh.
And ladies, we can do that. I accept your apology, but you're still doing things. Just we know how we can be. We accept this apology somewhat. And you start doing things or saying things you really didn't take it in. My thing is, let the heart heal. Let's talk about this thing. I don't care if we have to talk about it a year. I'm hoping that we shouldn't have to, but my thing is, in order for me to get past and move further, then we've got to discuss it until I'm comfortable. And so your sorry may not necessarily fix it at that moment. Maybe I need a little time, and you have to be able to let me do that. And that's on either side. If he's not ready, then you have to give him time. But you got to communicate. Don't start hardening up because now I said sorry. They didn't accept it today. So now you hard completely. That sometimes there is a conversation that is needed to allow that to transpire. Sometimes there is time that is needed to allow that to transpire.
Okay. Pastor KL, they say you don't pretend to accept apologies if you're not ready.
Yeah, and you know what? I think that's a good thing. Don't fake it. Because then it comes back and he or she says, well, you said you accepted it. Why are you still holding on to this thing? Why you don't let it go? I'd rather you say, no, I don't accept it right now. I'm not ready to accept it. Then it puts the ball back in my court to what I need to do. But once you said that you accepted, me in my mind as a man, I've moved on. I'm not dwelling on this thing no more. But you keep holding on to it after you said, yes, it's okay, I accept your apology. You didn't accept my apology. Just like people say, I forgive, but I don't forget. I think that's a bunch of crap. I forgive, but I don't forget. Then don't forgive me if you're going to keep on holding on to it. If you still got the picture on the wall, don't forgive me.
Okay. Jumping ahead of the game. Thank you very much. We got a check-in from Yvette. Good morning, Yvette. Thank you for joining us this morning. We're talking about the things that you do after an argument with your spouse that would make sure that you have a long-term marriage. And one of the things they say, you repair hurt you caused on purpose or by accident. Tamika.
Yeah, it's important that you work on those things. And we know how we can be. We know that, especially if you've been in a relationship with anybody, you know what their trigger points are. So that means you know what you did. You know how you did it. And you know you purposely, in some instances, did it. There are some times when we do things by accident. But my thing is, when you do it by accident, it's up to you to try and fix that, because you don't want to keep brushing past those things and trying to pretend, that it doesn't exist. Think about it visually. If you sweep stuff under the rug and you let it go, and you sweep something else under the rug, after a while, you're going to have a hill up underneath that rug. So work on trying to get rid of all of that stuff. Get the rug, pull the rug up. Get all of that stuff from underneath so that you don't have any issues that transpire because you didn't fix the last thing.
Okay. They say if you want to have a long-term marriage, you repair hurt you caused, whether it was on purpose or by accident, Pastor KL.
Yeah. I mean, again, you have to take responsibility for the things that you've done, that you caused to the relationship. At some point, back in my days, we had an amusement park, and they had the House of Mirrors, and in the House of Mirrors, all you had was mirrors, and you had to figure out how to get out of it. But before you can figure out how to get out of it, you kept on having to see yourself. You kept on having a reflection of yourself. At some point, you got to have a reflection of yourself and see what you're doing to this relationship. Are you the toxic one? Are you the one that's so insecure that you keep on hurting because you don't want to be hurt? That's what people do too. They reflect it, because if they think they're gonna get hurt, they'll hurt you first. So yeah, you have to fix a lot of stuff. You have to fix you first before you can fix that. But after you fix you, you have to fix her.
Okay. Going back to the last point, you don't pretend to accept apologies if you're not ready. Yvette said, "Yep, I agree. I struggle with that." And she's agreeing with the point that was made for the current. If you need to repair hurt you caused, whether it was on purpose or by accident. A lot of people, I want to stay here for a second. A lot of people, they want to be excused because it wasn't on purpose. How do you handle that, Tamika? Well, it was let me tell you one of the things that just irks my nerves. And this is in a relationship, intimate relationship or not. When somebody apologizes and they see you're like taken aback by what they did, and then they say, "Well, I didn't mean to do it." Nobody said you meant to do it, but that doesn't mean that I should be smiling after you did it. A lot of people, just because it's by accident, it's they feel like you should be accepting this thing differently. What say you, Tamika?
I think a lot of times we try to act like children, although an adult. Those words, please, thank you, and sorry, we're supposed to fix everything. And we don't. I don't think that we give real credence when it's us. When we're the offender, then it's like, okay, well, I said sorry, and that's the thing that we can get real indignant with it. After we've offended the person. Well, I said I was sorry. You supposed to apologize. No, I don't have to apologize. I don't have to accept your apology. You really hurt me. And so now it's going to take me a minute to kind of relate to what has happened. I have a right to take the time that I need to be able to heal from that. That's the sad part about it, is whenever it's turned around on the other side, you expect still as an adult for those please, thank you, and sorry to fix everything. No, it all depends on what you did to me and how it affected me. And I have a right to take the time that I need to heal from that. Because at this point now, I'm looking at you with a side eye, because I don't know. I'm waiting, unfortunately, for you to do it to me again.
Pastor KL, when people do things by accident, they expect, that rug treatment that Tamika talked about, it, just it should be brushed off, brushed away, pushed out, and they don't give an opportunity for you to kind of even absorb. And I've seen people, like I said, it has nothing to even do with an intimate relationship. They'll do something and you're like, oh, okay. And they're like, well, I didn't mean to do it. No, who cares? I didn't say you meant to do it, but can I have a second to even absorb it, what you did? Give me a minute to just take it in. What say you about this whole, if you want your relationship to last, even by accident when they do things?
Well, this is one thing that I say. This has always been my response to that. If you slap me and then apologize, I'm still slapped. I'm still hurt by the slap. I'm still dealing with the sting of the slap. So though your words are eloquent and nice, I'm still hurt by the slap. So I have to now wait until the sting of the slap goes away, so I'm no longer reminded of it, to even think about your apology. You can't apologize to me and my face is swollen from your slap, and thinking that I should be okay because you said, hey, baby, I'm sorry. No. Well, let me slap you back and we even. How about that?
Well, I'm going to add a question to this. What does forgiveness? Does that don't go to sleep with, don't let the sun go down? with on your wrath. And does that apply here, Tamika?
Woo! That's a good one.
Yeah, that's the stuff we gotta, we gotta think about. Because there's a little difference between the initial response and the longevity of your forgiveness. There's a difference.
Right. And that's where that conversation comes in, and it's so crucial. It's so important and so vital that you get to the heart of situations, even if you have to go back to certain things, this is why this makes me feel this way. I love the fact that, marriages, they go into in-depth conversations about things that happen in their childhood, because sometimes those things are related to something that happened in your current, and so that's a good one. You have to be able to heal. Sometimes I can forgive you even though I'm still wounded by it and still have to relate to you because I live with you. This is not something that I can just walk. I'm not going to walk past you and ignore you. I'm not going to say good morning, and people do that. And that's the hard thing about that. You walking around not speaking, one word answers, good morning, instead of saying good morning, sweetheart, morning. Those type of things. You have to get to a point where you open up your feelings, and be able to heal. Now, whether that happens, I can't tell you that. I think that's per individual, but you have to get to a point. I would believe that, you shouldn't go to sleep with that, on your mind and you harboring the anger. The mindset of allowing God to heal you is what's necessary to allow you to continue to function in your life. Yeah, you made me mad. Yeah, I was frustrated. Yes, I was angry, but I've got to get to the point where I love you enough to get past that. And I can't keep harboring it day after day after day, so that we can heal and we can function in a good flowing household. Continuing to allow that atmosphere, that peaceful atmosphere in your household. The one place that there should be peace is in your household.
All righty. Pastor KL, does this now compromise for overall forgiveness?
Tamika has said a mouthful. She just preached right there. But reality is, everybody ain't there yet. You know what I mean? That's why we have 2 and 3 bedroom apartments and houses, so you can go in another room. You know what I'm saying?
To do what? Wait, to go in another room to do what?
And go to sleep by yourself. Listen, I'm gonna tell you. So I'm gonna give you the Christian answer, and I'm gonna give you the other answer. The Christian answer is no. We should try to figure this out, before we go to bed and make it right. The black answer is realistically that doesn't always happen in the black house. It don't. Pookie pack a bag. Say Shaniqua say get out. You know what I mean? These are the things that happens. Now you have to grow into this point of the biblical aspect. That's growth. You just don't get married as Pookie and Shaniqua and know this growth. This is something that you have to go through. We've seen our parents and our grandparents not leave, saying, and take a punch or take a slap and be able to deal with it. These new people are not doing that. You have to get out, these are the things that this is what I require of you, but we're not thinking about the sun and the wrath. We're not thinking about all that stuff.
And although you have to grow into it, we're talking about, although you have to grow into it, right? This doesn't come overnight. It doesn't come overnight, but it cannot be this 9-year process.
Right. I agree.
God, listen, I'm sorry, because we have a comfortability level, because we have a comfort zone, a span, God does not give us all of this time we would love to take. So we're going to have to encourage you today to get this thing together. So like Pastor KL said, in your home growing up, or in grandma's home, you may have seen a whole lot of things get tolerated. And it shouldn't have been tolerated, but it was tolerated for the wrong reason. It was tolerated for the wrong reason. Oh, you don't give up. You don't do this. You don't do that. And I'm not saying you should have walked. That's not the case. But the situation was, back in the day, they did not address things. They let things go. So therefore, it made it seem as though that's just what you do. Now, because Pastor KL is correct, because we know people are not as tolerant as they should be, or they don't take things and follow the right path to learn how to deal with these things. We gotta teach you. We've got to train you. We've got to give you good counsel. So the fact of the matter is, we need to learn how to deal. That's why I added that piece to it, because when we talk about the by accident, I'm telling you, I've had people, like I said, it has nothing to do with relationship. I've had people do stuff and then they're like, well, I said I was sorry, and I'm looking at them like, so I got you sorry. I didn't say that I don't accept your apology, but I'm sorry. Should I just be smiling, or should I be running around the room because you good? Then no, I'm sorry. You said I'm sorry. Again, give me an opportunity to even absorb that you just tore down the china cabinet. I'm sorry. I need to absorb the fact that the china cabinet was a family heirloom. The things inside the cabinet were family heirlooms. And now I have to accept the fact that this stuff is gone. But because I didn't just, hug you and kiss you after you said, I'm sorry, now you're like, you twisted. So, we need to help to make a distinction between that and this long-term, I got to work this thing out in my head. I need some time. We don't have that kind of time. We would love to have that kind of time, but we don't. So we're going to have to get ourselves together. We don't have this parlay ability. And because the longer you keep this going, the easier it is to kind of settle in that. So we don't want to encourage you to just kind of chill there, because you need a minute. You get your minute and then get yourself together, so you can now move on in the right way that's acceptable to God. So I'm sorry to break your hearts, but that's what we need to face. Pastor KL, before we leave, I want to take this. Oh, Tamika, you're back. You stick to your fighting rules. So presuming there's some fighting rules in this relationship, they're saying stick to the fighting rules, and you have this long-term marriage. Tamika.
That such and such ticks me off. So don't do that. Don't do that. We just talked about triggers. That such and such triggers me off. So there are certain things that you shouldn't do, because that's going to make me mad. Same thing with me. I know that blah, blah, blah ticks you off. So I'm not going to do that. We're going to have our conversation. Yeah, there are times when we're not going to always agree. There are times that, again, we're not identical, and even identical twins, they have differences. One likes this, one likes that. And so, my thing is, the rules, what triggers me, what makes me all the more angry. Then don't do those things, and I won't do those things. Those are the rules. This is how we communicate. This is how we get on one accord, because we're not trying deliberately to make each other mad. Yes, I frustrated you with this one thing, but we're not going to add to it by me doing things that deliberately make you mad.
All right. Pastor KL, you stick to your fighting rules. Are there rules?
In some houses there are rules. There are things that are safe. There's things that, you hit under the belt. You know what I mean? If we're going to argue, let's argue about the facts of today. Let's not go back into, you just like your father. Say, I can't stand your mama. We ain't talking about my mama right now. We ain't talking about your father right now. But because it seems like we can't win the argument, we got to dig deeper. Dig deeper. Dig deeper. I really don't like your children. Your children ain't my children. Technically, I ain't got no grandchildren because none of my children ain't got no children. There's all of your children that is out here having babies that now you want me to be papa. It's stuff like that, and that's hidden under the belt. that's hidden below the belt. And let's stick to the argument at hand. Let's fix what we're dealing with and what we're disagreeing with now. What we disagreed with last week, if it wasn't fixed, then hey, it wasn't fixed. We had the opportunity to fix it. Let's not combine it and put it with this, because now the argument makes no sense.
Okay. Which brings us to our last point. You let go of frustration and resentment. You just walked right into that one. Tamika, you can take that one first.
And that could be, depending on what the circumstance is, that could be a hard thing to do. But we're in a day and age, I want to be very transparent, where people are checking out before you know it. Let's look at the movie, what is it? Why Did I Get Married Too? They have been fighting and arguing and just, and he was hit by a car and done, finished. You don't know what tomorrow holds for your spouse. And so at this point, it's important that you try your best to do whatever it is that you can to alleviate the pain. And it has to be even on both sides. If I'm the one trying to make sure that everything functions on a daily basis and you harboring anger about something that happened 6 years ago, wait a minute, we can't even have a conversation today about such and such because you're still harboring that thing. Work on you, because you can only be accountable for you. Yes, we're in a relationship, but you can't be accountable for me. I have to be accountable for me, and you have to be accountable for you so that we can function the right way.
All righty. Pastor KL, you let go of frustration and resentment.
You know what? And let's go a little further. You have not let go of what the other guy did to you. So now you keep on looking for me to do it to you. You know what I mean? So now my relationship with you, I'm walking on eggshells because of things that I have not done, or you think that I might have done. When you come into the relationship with so much baggage and you don't take the stuff out the bag, I can't see what's in the bag. So now I'm guessing, well, does she have a two-piece? I'm guessing, does she have a shirt? I'm guessing, does she have I'm guessing. And then all of a sudden I get slapped with stuff that I didn't do. I get hurt by the hurt that you're still harboring from someone else. And guess what? I didn't even know him. I didn't even know your daddy did this to you. I didn't even know you had mama issues. I didn't know you didn't get along with your sister, because every time I go around the functions, it looks like one big happy family. But now I'm dealing with all this baggage that you won't let out of the bag.
Wow. All righty. Woo! Oh, my due time crew. As always, we thank you for your contribution into today's conversation, and we pray you have a blessed day. Job well done. Thank you.
Have a blessed
day. Take care.
All right. Thank you. All right. Before we go into our next segment, we have some comment. We have a leftover comment about the Trump, the voting, the 98% poll that they say people would have voted the same way today that they voted back in November of 2024. So the people who voted for Trump back then said they still would have voted for Trump despite all the stuff that he's done. People who voted for Kamala Harris back then still say, I would have voted for Kamala Harris. And Terrence says, that's so true. Trump is doing everything he said he's going to do. They just assumed it would only affect black people, but it's affecting everyone. Good for them. And that's what happened. That's what they said. It was like, well, why would I change who I voted for, especially for Trump? He said he was going to do what he was going to do, and he held true to it. So Good enough for me. Wow. Well, thank you so much for your comments. It's the top of the hour on a Monday morning, and you know what I call the top of the hour. It's time for the switch tip. Let's say good morning to Shantice. The switch with Shantice. Good morning.
Good morning, Pastor Steph. How are you?
I am well, thank you. How are you this morning?
I'm fine, thank you.
Good. What you got for us today?
Today we have the switch with Shantice, where we make the switch from the streets to our godly seat. And we are at switch tip 219, which is give up your priorities. And I had to make sure I put the emphasis on your, because we're supposed to have priorities. God has the list of things we need to make sure we focus on that are going to be beneficial for us despite popular belief. And then we have the list of things that we want to do that we think, when we just take it upon ourselves to lean to our own understanding, that we deem important. So of course, we have to pull up the definition of priority. The fact or condition of being regarded or treated as more important. A synonym. There were a few synonyms for priority, but what stuck out to me was preference. What's the definition of preference? A greater liking for one alternative over another or others. And there were a couple of synonyms for preference, but we're not going to get into that because that's going to require a whole other switch tips. I don't want to get ahead of myself. We need to focus on giving up our priorities. So the fact or condition of being regarded or treated as more important, having a greater liking for one thing than another. And we know that that's how we move nowadays. It has everything to do about what I prefer and a whole lot less to do with what I'm supposed to be focused on. What makes me feel comfortable? What gives me that instant and self-gratification? That's what we go towards. Now, our priorities tell a whole lot about ourselves, like about us, than we realize. And I've noticed something, I've been saying it for about a year and a half, maybe almost 2 years. Like, people, you don't really have to ask a whole lot of questions. You see how like Pastor Steph and the Do Time Crew, they have the relationship Mondays, and you know, sometimes they go over like the questions you should ask, or a lot of the time, and don't get me wrong, you should ask questions. But if you take the time to listen, like James 1:19 says, be quick to hear and slow to speak, you won't really have to speak and ask a whole lot of questions, because people tell you they tell themselves a lot. We telling ourselves a lot. And one of the ways we tell on ourselves is our preferences, because our priorities expose our hearts. Luke 12:34 in the Amplified Version reads, "For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." And Pastor Steph loves to remind us how people love to say, God knows my heart. Yeah, he does know your heart. He knows how wicked and filthy he is. And that's not me saying it. It's not Pastor Steph saying it. The Bible says that too. Your heart is wicked and deceitful. Who can know it but me? Only God knows how wicked. Sometimes we try to trick ourselves. Like, stop, you know you ain't about nothing. Stop trying to act like you doing this because you care about the other person, or you doing this to benefit others. A lot of times things are done because we think about how it is going to benefit and satisfy us first and foremost. So when we have our priority list, and you see that when we writing down and jotting, when we be jotting and we putting down, well, this is what I prefer, and then after that I prefer this, and after that I prefer that, it shows the condition of our heart. So be careful, because yes, God sees it before we even start making those lists. Are our priorities working? Now here's, because once upon a time, God allowed us to rock for whatever his reasons were. Maybe it was just a whole lot of extra grace and mercy back then. But once upon a time, he allowed us to believe that what we were doing, how we were prioritizing things, the things we preferred over other things, were beneficial for us and for others, and it was working. And maybe it's because he was just granting us more time to sober up in him and turn to him and realize that it's not working. Now he's allowing us to see just And I've learned to pray, God, this is my desire. Before I got time to sink my teeth into my desire, shut me down, please. 1 Timothy 4:8 in the Amplified Version reads, for physical training is of some value, but godliness, spiritual training, is of value in everything and in every way, since it holds promise for the present life and for the life to come. Which means when we give up our priorities and focus on the things that God needs us to prefer over other things, it is not only going to be momentary benefits, it is going to benefit us and others now and in our latter days. And we all want to live long, healthy lives, right? Okay. But in order to do that, we need to make sure that we're making good decisions and choices now for later on, even later on in the day. Okay. If my morning doesn't start off right, how do I expect to have a peaceful night? Doesn't really work like that. Now, this was the first verse I actually saw when I started researching the verses that go along with giving up our priorities. And this is actually Pastor Steph's favorite verse. Matthew 6:33 in the Amplified Version reads, but first and most importantly, seek, aim at, strive after his kingdom and his righteousness, his way of doing and being right, the attitude and character of God, and all these things will be given to you also. And that is actually under the banner of the cure for anxiety. Now, again, that's going to be a whole other switch tip. But what is the point in making these lists and prioritizing things if we walk around talking about, I got anxiety and I'm worrying, I'm panicking, I got ADHD and all that. I'm telling you, if I hear another grown man tell me he got ADHD, but yet you prioritize making money, you prioritize smoking weed, you prioritize the next female you're going to sleep with over a deficiency. Again, people who really have that don't walk around claiming they have that. So already that shows you have another deficiency that you're not claiming. But we have to make sure we're making the switch on focusing on our priorities, to making sure that we are going to the Lord and asking him to replace his desires, our desires for his, so that, let's go back to these definitions, so that the things that we are regarding are important to the Lord, and that we are having a greater liking for what God requires for us and less for what we require for ourselves. Okay. Thank you, Pastor Steph.
Thank you, Shantice. Thank you. Very practical switch tip. Name of your switch tip again.
Give up your priorities. Emphasis on your.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. We thank you for your contribution into today's episode. And we pray you have a blessed day.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Let's get this benediction. But grow spiritually mature in the grace and knowledge of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. To him be glory, honor, majesty, splendor, both now and to the day of eternity. Amen. That's 2 Peter 3:18. Woo! Wow. Your priorities. Wow, that falls right into place with the conversation that we had with our Due Time crew. We're talking about, what do you do? What are the special things you can do? What are those specific things you can do after the fight with your spouse that will make sure you have a long marriage? We don't want to just have a 15-minute marriage. We want to have something that's long. Correct? Correct. Well, shift your priorities. Okay. Take responsibility instead of assigning blame. If you are a person who has prioritized assigning blame, then remember, I always say, stop looking across the table. Look in the mirror. Go to God and ask God, okay, God, what could I do better? You know, I've told you that there were times that somebody would do something to me, and then God would tell me to call them. And I'm like, and say what? I didn't do nothing. They did. And, you know, he had to say, well, listen, this is not for you. It's for them. And I'm like dialing, and I'm like, well, what am I supposed to say? And as soon as the connection is made, God gives me something. And I'll say, you know what? I'm sorry. Well, did I respond wrong? Did I move incorrectly? Did I move a little too soon? Did I move a little too late? What could I have done to make this better? Well, that comes with assigning blame versus responsibility, taking that responsibility. So that's what God had to teach me. You didn't have to be the cause of anything, but how did you contribute? Oh boy, that's a huge one. So shift that priority. Think about how you can take responsibility opposed to placing blame. You don't require agreement. Where's the priority? Is the priority on them, or is the priority on you? Do they have to do things your way? What's the priority? To make this relationship work, or to get my way? Stop acting like a baby. Oh, check those priorities. You fight for the relationship, not against one another. Like Pastor KL said, don't wait till the bags get packed and now you want to fight for the relationship. That should always be the case. Now, if you take point one and point two, that right there is fighting for the relationship. So if you've already been doing those two things, guess what? This is a no-brainer, because this would already be happening. Do you understand what I'm saying? You don't have to literally say, I'm going to fight for the relationship. I'm not going to fight with him or her. No, when you automatically stop placing blame and take responsibility, you're already fighting for the relationship. When things don't have to go your way, you're already fighting for the relationship. Prioritize, all right? Don't pretend to accept apologies if you're not ready. Now, this one here, I'm a little mixed on, because it's the way you say things to people. Meaning, how do we explain it to you? And that's one of the things that we talked about later. You know, most times when we're doing these round robins, I really don't. Other than Wild Wednesday, I do not interject. I wait till the end to put in what God has given me. Now, you don't pretend to accept apologies if you're not ready. Accepting an apology has nothing to do with whether you're ready or not. Nothing to do with it at all. We always should be ready to accept the apology. But are you accepting what someone is saying? See, this is a deep one right here. We're going to have to go into this one, you know, real closely one day, because this is loaded right here. When I read this point last night, I was like, I don't know if I want to include this one, but I didn't want to not include it because I wanted to leave you food for thought. Okay. So let me just keep it right there. You want to accept the apology, even if you're not ready. But that has to come with a level of explanation. That's where the dialogue and the communication comes in. Okay. So think about that. If you need some clarity, just hit me up. I can help you with this one. Trust me. Priorities, y'all. Priorities. You repair hurt you caused on purpose or by accident, which is why I kind of elaborated, because I thought about that one that just happened right above this one. And I thought about this one, that on accident. You know, people say, I'm sorry. And it's like, okay, I got you sorry, but let's talk about this thing here. You know, I just talked to one of my girls the other day, and she said someone apologized, and she said, I said, that's okay. And then she said, I realized after I said it that I shouldn't have said that. And I said, right. Never tell somebody when they apologize, never say it's okay. Because if they found a reason to apologize, no, it's not okay. Say thank you and dialogue about it if you need to. Everything doesn't need a dialogue, but There are certain things that need a dialogue, even when people apologize. Sometimes it is good to just say, you know what, thank you for your apology. I appreciate that. And leave it. And there are other times where you will have to talk about this thing, because sometimes people just apologize. Well, what are you apologizing for? And that's what I've come to ask children. Years ago, it's like, say sorry, say I'm sorry. And I'm sorry. And they walk off. They don't even know what they apologized for. They don't even understand what they've been charged with. They don't even understand what has just happened. We need to explain to them. Ask them, what are you apologizing for? Just to make sure they understand. My granddaughter used to always do, I'm sorry. I'm like, stop apologizing. I don't want to hear that apology. What are you saying? Do you know what you're saying? No. What are we talking about here? If I'm saying something to you, there's no cause for an apology. Apology is not needed. I need you to understand what happened. You don't have to apologize for that. I'm trying to teach you something. So we really got, let me tell you something. This here, these things that we talk about, what you do after the fight, is talk. Get it out. Some, people, especially men, I don't like to talk. One of the worst things that you can do is not talk. Because, baby, when a lot of things are left open, there's a lot of room for problems. And Tamika and Pastor KL, they talked about that. There are problems that come from not talking. That lack of communication, that breeds a whole lot of problems. And you know what? These days, that thing ain't gonna work. Years ago, Pastor KL said, yeah, they stayed. These days and times, they ain't happening. Nope. You stick to your fighting rules. There should always be fighting rules. There should always be rules. There should always be rules. Now, there should always just be some basic rules, like no name calling. Certain things you just don't say, because once that hits the air, you cannot take this stuff back. I don't care nothing about how much you apologize, how sincere your apology may be. Why? Because the Bible says, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. The Bible talks about, that tongue, that small member that is deadly. Problem. That mouth. So there should always be rules, some basic rules, some unspoken rules. Rules that you've talked about before the marriage. Things that you've agreed to. Listen, when we speak, if you're angry with me, when we get angry with one another, there's just going to be some things that we just don't do. Talk about this stuff before the marriage. Don't be talking about this stuff after you done got married. Because you don't want to find out at that point that either one of you have a problem with this thing. And now this going to rip up your marriage. And now you got to go through all of this before you go through some good stuff. All right. And you let go of frustration and resentment. Like Pastor KL said, a lot of things come from our past. We bring a lot of baggage into relationships at times, and you don't want to get involved in that. So you're going to have to let go old frustration and resentment. You're going to have to let go of current frustration and resentment. Okay? All righty. Let's get that thing done if we want a long, loving, lasting marriage. You've been watching It's Due Time with Pastor Steph. Join us Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. where we discuss matters of the heart, mind, and spirit. As you go through your day, be sure to set your mind on things that are above, not on things that are on the earth. They will always serve as a distraction. Remember, prayer changes things. It's Pastor Steph signing off, and I want to thank my Due Time crew for always coming through big time. Thank you for hanging out with us and keeping that chat room live. Please do not miss this opportunity to give Christ your life right now. Please do not miss this opportunity to strengthen that relationship with the Lord right now, because later is not promised to any of us. We just got finished talking about how you're going to make a relationship last long. If God is not in your relationship, it ain't going to last like that. Or if it does, it's going to be not good, not the best. So you want to make sure you give Christ your life and you strengthen that relationship with the Lord, because now you can put that into your marriage. Well, until tomorrow, God spares, where it's Let's Talk About It Tuesday Church Folk Day. Until then, I love